History is written by the victors, but the blueprints of the vanquished remain in the archives, detailing a future that never was. To understand a Nazi victory, we do not need science fiction. We possess the actual documents: Generalplan Ost, the plans for Wealth-Helpstadt Germania, and the SS directives for a continental empire. This is not a fantasy of the man in the high castle. This is the bureaucratic reality of what the Third Reich intended to build had the Wehrmacht secured the oil fields of the Caucasus in 1942 or forced a British surrender in 1940. The divergence point lies likely in May 1940. Had the order to halt the panzers outside Dunkirk never been issued, the British Expeditionary Force would have been annihilated. Without an army, Britain likely sues for peace or faces Operation Sea Lion, the amphibious invasion. Winston Churchill is ousted, replaced perhaps by Lord Halifax or a reinstated pro-German Edward VIII. With the Western Front pacified, the full industrial might of the Ruhr and the captured French fleet turns exclusively towards the east. The primary objective of National Socialism was always Lebensraum, living space in the east. In this timeline, the Wehrmacht does not stall at Stalingrad. They push to the AA line, the Arkhangelsk-Astrakhan line. This was the designated limit of the German conquest, a geographic barrier rendering the Soviet remnants in Siberia impotent. The Soviet Union dissolves into warlord states, while the fertile black earth of Ukraine becomes the granary of the Reich. The horror of a Nazi victory is codified in Generalplan Ost. This was not merely military occupation, it was demographic engineering on an industrial scale. The plan explicitly called for the deportation, enslavement, or extermination of 31 million Slavs to make room for German settlers. Poland, Ukraine, and Belarus were to be erased, replaced by a grid of Wehrbauer settlements, soldier peasants ruling over a slave caste in a feudal nightmare powered by modern bureaucracy. Berlin would cease to exist. In its place, Welthauptstadt Germania. Albert Speer's designs reveal a city built for giants, not humans. The Volkshalle, a dome so massive that rain clouds would form inside it from human perspiration, would dominate the skyline. The Avenue of Splendors would require the demolition of 50,000 homes. This architecture was psychological warfare, designed to make the individual feel microscopic in the face of the state. It was the stone manifestation of totalitarianism. Technologically, the Reich was a paradox. By 1945, they possessed the world's first jet fighters, the Me-262 and the V-2 ballistic missile. In a victory scenario, German rocketry advances unopposed. Werner von Braun envisions the America bomber, suborbital spaceplanes capable of striking New York from Europe. However, their nuclear physics was crippled. The regime labeled quantum mechanics Jewish science, expelling minds like Einstein and Bohr. A Nazi victory likely sees a delay in the atomic age, replaced by devastating conventional precision weaponry. German scientists actually researched the Sonnengewehr, a sun gun, an orbital mirror 1.5 kilometers wide, designed to focus solar rays to burn cities or boil oceans. While scientifically implausible for the 1950s, the ambition highlights the megalomania of Nazi engineering. They sought domination not just of land, but of the thermodynamics of the planet itself. A global conquest was never immediate doctrine. Hitler hoped for an accommodation with the United States, but a Cold War between a Nazi-dominated Euro-Africa and the United States would have been inevitable. The Atlantic becomes a no-man's land. The US, turning into a fortress state, accelerates its own Manhattan Project. We see a bipolar world, not of capitalism versus communism, but of liberal democracy versus National Socialist totalitarianism, bristling with intercontinental missiles by the mid-1950s. But beneath the marble and rockets, the Reich was rotting. The Nazi economy was a Ponzi scheme based on plunder. It functioned by looting conquered treasuries and relying on slave labor. Once the conquest stopped, the economic engine would seize. Goetz Ali, a German historian, argued that the Reich bought the loyalty of its citizens with stolen goods. Peace would have brought hyperinflation and collapse. as the looting economy cannot sustain a static empire. Socially, the regime planned a return to archaic tribalism. The SS ran Lebensborn clinics to breed a racial elite. Women were to be relegated to kitchen, church, and children, rewarded with the Cross of Honor of the German Mother for high birth rates. The state effectively nationalized reproduction. The goal was a caste system, where SS officers constituted a new aristocracy, entirely separate from the law, answering only to Himmler. Heinrich Himmler had even stranger plans. He envisioned an SS state in Burgundy, carved out of France, independent of the Reich itself. Here, the SS would practice occult rituals at Wewelsburg Castle, creating a pseudo-religion worshipping blood and soil, devoid of Christianity. This internal fracturing suggests that after Hitler's death, the Reich would likely descend into a warlord era, with the Wehrmacht, the SS, and the Party tearing each other apart. The East would remain a bleeding wound. Hitler predicted a permanent frontier war in the Urals against Slavic insurgents, similar to the British frontier in India. This perpetual war was seen as desirable, a way to keep the German race hard. But in reality, it would have been a drain on manpower and resources, a Vietnam War that never ends, stretching across thousands of miles of frozen taiga. The most harrowing reality is the completion of the Holocaust. In our timeline, the extermination camps were liberated in 1945. In a victory scenario, the final solution is fully executed. The Jewish population of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa is systematically eradicated. The regime then turns its sights on other undesirables: the terminally ill, the disabled, political dissidents, and Jehovah's Witnesses. The moral void at the center of Europe expands until silence reigns. Totalitarian regimes rarely survive their founders. Hitler's health was failing by 1945. Parkinson's and drug dependency were rampant. A death in the 1950s would trigger a succession crisis. Hermann Goering, the drug-addicted kleptocrat, Heinrich Himmler, the fanatical ideologue, and perhaps Reinhard Heydrich, the cold technocrat. Civil war was almost a certainty, mirroring the fall of Rome, with generals marching their armies on Germania to claim the throne. Ultimately, the Thousand-Year Reich was a mathematical impossibility. It was an ideology of cannibalism, consuming its neighbors, then its minorities, and finally its own children. While the military victory was possible, the political longevity was not. It would have collapsed under the weight of its own paranoia and economic incompetence, but not before extinguishing the light of civilization for decades. We are fortunate that this map remains in the archives, a cartography of a nightmare we woke up from just in time.